So as Aaron mentioned, my name's Scott Broaddus, and about 5 years ago, Cullian Eckenrode and I helped design the planning and ultimately implementation of the 401k solution that's offered by SCRS to all the member businesses. And when Aaron asked me to talk, I was thinking through what would be interesting to me and realized that may not be interested to many of you. One thing I have been reading about a lot is behavioral economics. I think given the climate that we've had this year, if anyone's watched their 401k balances, a lot of you are thinking about behavioral economics, whether you realize it or not. And in super technical terms, behavioral economics means why do I do what I do with my money? Okay. Behavioral economics has been studied for decades. Richard Thaler was given the Nobel Prize in economics in 2017 on the topic of behavioral economics. And what he found is for decades, economists had been making decisions under the assumption that you and me make optimal or rational choices with our money. If we get another dollar, that we do the right thing with it, whether that's save it or spend it or reinvest it in our business. And what he quickly realized is we are not rational at all with our money. We are programmed all the way down biologically to make decisions that give us enjoyment or pleasure immediately. Okay, making a sacrifice, doing something that will benefit us down the road is not in our nature. And so recognizing that, thinking about it, and making decisions that will not just give you enjoyment today, but will build the groundwork and lay the framework for you for years to come is a really powerful idea. So what types of decisions do we make that are not necessarily rational? Have any of you ever loaned or probably given money to your kids for some reason? Help them get started, buy a first house, do whatever silly thing that they're gonna do? Does anybody pay off their mortgage early or pay down their mortgage more quickly? An economist would say that is not the optimal use of the dollar, but there are lots of reasons why we choose to do that. It gives us more security, makes us feel like our house is paid off and we have lower expenses, and we can take that and do something else with it. We can reinvest in our business. We can grow, we can expand, we can move into new lines. The sense of security that I have by having a house that's paid off is hard to measure, it's hard to quantify, but it's absolutely there. And Richard Thaler, and the title of my presentation is a book by Morgan Housel called The Psychology of Money. And Morgan talks that we are really trying to blend the mix between enjoyment today, security today, because that usually ends up meaning that we're gonna make better choices down the road. And so I want to give an example. Does anybody have a real Christmas tree that they put up in their house every year? Okay. Does anyone notice that the prices of Christmas trees have gone up pretty substantially over the last year? The reason for that is in 2008 and 2009, when we have the Great Recession, nobody was buying Christmas trees in the winter of 2009. And so you get to January of 2010, and all these Christmas tree growers just had abysmal sales. They have no money. They're faced with incredibly uncertain times. And they're now trying to decide whether they're going to plant seeds in the ground that are going to take between 10 and 13 years before you can cut that tree and send it out to be sold at market. So what happened? A lot of people panicked. A lot of people said it's not worth the time. I don't have the funding. I don't want to go and borrow. I had less money coming in from 2009. And a lot of people packed up and left. And so what you're seeing is the price of Christmas trees. Those who planted the seeds that they would not see grow for 10 years plus are now having a windfall because there's much less competition that's out there. So as a shop, what are ways that you're trying to strike a balance of reinvesting? You're in the business. They talk about business owners being in the business versus working on the business. Being in the business is important, but you need to step back and lay those seeds for what is the next 10 or 15 years going to look like. One quote that I just wanted to throw out there that Morgan Housel wrote in his book, and I think it applies when we talk about how we spend and save money, is he wrote, "When people say they want to be a millionaire, what they mean is, I want to spend $1 million. All right, think about that. When someone says, I want to be a millionaire, that means I want to be able to spend $1 million. And if you spend $1 million, you are no longer a millionaire, right? So you all, this industry is a family affair. Many of you have spouses, many of you have children or parents that you work with. Your big liquidity event is going to be different than other industries. You're not trying to sell necessarily to a private equity company and get some massive value that's out there. You're trying to nurture this thing. If I have a business that I want to leave to my son Parker, how in the world is he going to save enough money to pay me what a private equity company would pay me? I need to be saving money along the way. Being a millionaire is not what you see. It's in your bank accounts. It's in the value of your business and the building that you own. In your 401k plan. It's choosing not to spend that money, choosing to make that sacrifice. Abraham Lincoln had a quote that's used a lot. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. I get a lot of pleasure by going down to the casino. Maybe it's pleasure, maybe it's pain, depending on how it turns out, right? But at some point, there needs to be a limit, and I need to say, all right, that's enough, and I'm going to go and move on to the next thing that's there. You all need to be saving money. We are a horrible society at saving money. The average US American saves 7% of their pay. Generations before also received pensions, which are no longer there. The average German saves 16% of their pay. The average Swede saves 18% of their pay. If you can live on 80% of what you make or what your shop earns in a year, that gives you a huge margin of safety. It gives you a way of setting money aside so that if you want future generations to take that company over, you don't have to grab maximum value. It also means that if you have a year like 2020, where vehicle collisions were down 20% in Virginia, that I've got margin of safety there. I don't have to close up my shop. I can still plant the seeds. I can stay in business. We're seeing that a lot in the 401k world, in the in-stock world right now, right? There's uncertainty. A lot of people are making rash decisions, and you want to balance. And part of this is just being thoughtful about it. If I can balance the decision today versus the decision down the road, then you're halfway there. So what I want to leave you with, I don't know if anyone's ever seen this show. It's been on Showtime. It's called House of Lies. House of Lies, Don Cheadle and his crew were high-paid management consultants. Businesses would hire them. They'd pay extraordinary amounts of money for them to come in and tell a business owner what they wanted to hear so that they could get paid. McKinsey, which is one of the largest consulting firms in the United States, charges $16,000 for 1 day of consulting. I've heard a lot of stuff that's not so great, but the best piece of advice that I wanted to leave you with is I was meeting with a business and they had a consultant. This is a very well-run company. They had a good management team. They'd been around. They had good market share. Sales were repeatable. This thing was rolling and operating very smoothly. And he said, it's operating smoothly today, but I want this management team to get together and let's brainstorm for a second. And I want you to open up an imaginary second business. And this second business's job is to try to put this existing business out of business. So if you were to open up a new collision repair shop and its only job was to close yours down, what would you do? Would you open a new location? Would you expand your footprint? Would you work on different types of vehicles? Would you get certifications that maybe you've been holding out on or not sending employees to training? Would you try to retain your best folks that are there? Would you become the advertising, the celebrity on local TV so everybody chooses what that is? And whatever those decisions are, you don't close that first shop in 6 months. You probably don't close it in a year. Probably don't close it in 3 years. So I hope that my idea today is think about today, think about the gratification and the enjoyment and the decisions that you make, but please lay those seeds for what this business can become 10 to 15 years from now, and make sure that you're saving along the way so that you're prepared to weather some of those storms. So thank you for your time.